A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 260. In the previous episode, Han Li managed to secure some rare treasures after a tense exchange with Wei Wuya and Master Sunreach. Wei Wuya, impressed by Han Li's resourcefulness, handed him a piece of Auric Essence, enough to refine his 36 flying swords. At the same time, Master Sunreach offered him a section of the profound goddess palm's rootstock, a legendary ancient rattan palm long sought after by both the Righteous and Devil Dao. While its revival seemed impossible, Han Li considered experimenting with a mysterious green liquid he possessed, hoping to bring the palm to life and possibly create a miraculous breakthrough. Grateful for the treasures but focused on the upcoming wagered battle, he decided to leave and prepare, even as Wei Wuya jokingly forgave him for interfering with his nephew's love interest. Master Sunreach and Wei Wuya, left behind, exchanged astonished glances, pondering Han Li's sudden rise and the treasures he now possessed. Master Sunreach shook his head with a wry smile and muttered to himself. Besides, his treasures may be precious, but would they allow me to break through to deity transformation stage? Besides, the heavenly Dao union and those pair cultivators aren't easily trifled with. And episode 260 is starting. As Wei Wuya and Master Sunreach remained behind and had a casual discussion about Han Li. The person in question had already arrived outside. To his surprise, Han Li caught sight of Dong Xuan'er standing quietly outside the hall. She had her head lowered, appearing lost in thought, and the cultivators on guard paid her no attention, treating her presence as inconsequential. But the moment her eyes fell on Han Li, her expression changed subtly. There was a mixture of confusion, hesitation, and faint resentment in the way she looked at him. Han Li, for his part, felt a twinge of bewilderment. He could not quite make sense of her reaction, nor did he have any desire to probe. He chose instead to walk past her as though she were invisible, keeping his pace slow and deliberate as he made his way toward the distant street. Dong Xuan'er stayed rooted in place, biting her lip nervously and silently watching him depart. Only after he had turned a corner did she break eye contact. And Han Li shook his head, frowning slightly at the odd encounter. From the back of his mind, Silvermoon's curious voice sounded, asking whether he knew the woman. Han Li's reply was casual, almost dismissive. She was an old acquaintance, but their relationship had never been close. And in fact, it had once been hostile. Silvermoon teased gently, suggesting that Han Li might have shared a more complicated history with her. But he cut her off sharply, asserting that he held a poor impression of her and reminding her that they had been enemies. Silvermoon chuckled wryly and let the matter drop. Over time, since Han Li had saved Silvermoon and kept silent about sensitive matters like the purple cloudless and the ancient flower basket, the two had grown closer. Silvermoon had begun speaking more freely with Han Li, and in turn, he had come to trust her more deeply. Their relationship had evolved into one of mutual confidence and understanding, which Han Li noted silently, appreciating the bond that had quietly strengthened between them. Later, upon returning to the Drifting Cloud Sect encampment, Han Li met briefly with Lu Luo to discuss the upcoming wagered battle. Lu Luo wore a worried expression, cautioning Han Li against risking his life despite the rarity of Auric Essence, the coveted resource at stake. Han Li, confident in his own abilities, reassured Lu Luo. He insisted that he was prepared to face the challenge and warned that during the battle, he would be unable to tend to the safety of the sect disciples, leaving them in Lu Luo's care. Hearing this, Lu Luo relaxed, promising that the disciples would be well looked after. He then asked whether Han Li required any specific assistance in preparing for the battle. In response, Han Li handed Lu Luo a jade slip containing a list of materials he would need to craft the spirit subjugation talisman. Lu Luo accepted the task without hesitation, assuring Han Li that anything obtainable within Skyfirst City would be gathered. With this assurance, Han Li felt a sense of relief, confident that he could focus on the next stage of his preparations. The spirit subjugation talisman was central to Han Li's plan. It would serve as his primary killing move in the wagered battle, a powerful tool he could refine within a matter of days. While his current strength was sufficient to survive the confrontation, he believed that any additional advantage could make a significant difference. Initially, Han Li had hoped to find a suitable spirit talisman brush and practice further to perfect the refinement process. But with only a few days remaining, he had no choice but to attempt the talisman now, fully aware that the odds of success were far from guaranteed. Any other enhancements, such as tempering his flying swords with Auric Essence or cultivating the Aureate sword formation, were impossible to complete within the short time frame. Once all the materials were in his possession, Han Li moved into a specially sealed room. Sitting cross-legged at the center, he carefully arranged the components in front of him. He then opened a black-green bottle from his storage pouch, releasing a streak of crimson light that formed a small, writhing flood dragon in his palm. The dragon, only a few inches long, was restrained by a hand of shimmering azure light that pulsed with energy, holding it in place like a bird in a cage. Its attempts to escape were purely instinctual, and Han Li, using his bright sight spirit eyes, examined every detail of its soul. Though the dragon's power remained formidable, its intelligence had diminished greatly over the decades. It had become primal and feral, a shell of its former self, driven only by instinct. Observing this, Han Li reflected on the fragility of power and the risks of cultivation. He thought of the day when he might lose his flesh body, and the fate of his primal soul if it fell into the hands of an enemy, a cautionary lesson mirrored in the subdued state of the flood dragon. Satisfied that he had studied the dragon's soul sufficiently, Han Li lifted it 3 meters above his head, enclosing it in an azure barrier to keep it restrained. He then turned his attention to the other materials laid out before him. First was an emerald green hide from an unidentified spirit beast. He levitated it before himself and carefully breathed a sliver of azure nascent flame onto it. Remarkably, the flame did not burn the hide. Instead, it enveloped it like a living aura. Han Li began a series of precise incantation gestures, flicking his fingers to strike the hide with numerous spell seals. The nascent flame pulsed and shimmered with energy as he worked. Next, he opened a white jade box containing sparkling silver powder. A small portion of the powder was flung into the flames, producing silver embers that danced and intertwined with the spirit beast hide. Under Han Li's meticulous control, the hide gradually transformed into a massive silver lotus flower, rotating steadily within the blaze. Han Li's face grew solemn as he added further materials, guiding the process with exacting precision. The hide's color shifted in stages, from silver to black, black to green, and finally to crimson, until it was ready for the final steps of the refinement. To stabilize the transformation, Han Li extended threads of azure light from his fingertips, binding the hide and allowing him to manipulate its momentum. The hide released thin strands of black energy as it shrank slightly. And when this energy touched the crimson nascent flame, it produced a faintly fishy scent. Han Li ignored it entirely, maintaining perfect focus on the incantations. 2 hours passed in concentrated effort, and at last, the last traces of black energy were refined. Han Li finally allowed the flames to die down, revealing a small crimson spirit hide, only the size of his palm. Han Li was satisfied to the chances to the spirit hide. He then pointed to the flood dragon soul above him without the slightest hesitation and had the barrier surrounding it scatter into specks of light. Then, through some invisible force, it was sucked into the crimson spirit hide. And that wraps up this episode. In this part, we saw Han Li encountering Dong Xuan'er unexpectedly, revealing the complex and tense history between them. Although there was a moment of hesitation and unspoken emotion, Han Li chose to focus on his own path, walking past her without acknowledgement. We also witnessed the deepening trust and bond between Han Li and Silvermoon, highlighting how past events and shared experiences have strengthened their relationship. The main focus of this episode was Han Li's meticulous preparation for the upcoming wagered battle. We followed him as he gathered rare materials and carefully refined the spirit subjugation talisman, a powerful and precise killing tool that could provide him with a significant advantage. The process of crafting the talisman demonstrated Han Li's incredible skill, patience, and strategic thinking, as well as his awareness of the risks and the fragility of even the strongest powers. The scene with the flood dragon soul further emphasized the stakes and the careful consideration required on the path of cultivation. This episode shows that while Han Li possesses formidable strength, he is not reckless. He values preparation, foresight, and precision, understanding that power alone is not enough to overcome the challenges ahead. Every step he takes, every talisman he refines, and every decision he makes contributes to building a stronger foundation for his survival and success. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can receive notifications for the latest episodes following Han Li's journey. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next videos.